Colin, you're live, so you're welcome to start whenever you're ready.
Yes, I think it's only us at the moment. Give it a few minutes.
Okay.
Hopefully, we should have more during this time. But in any case, if we don't have a lot of people, but just like what been said by Agi, this is recorded, and I believe it will be provided to a wider audience. Now, I believe that is only to the Prime members. Am I right?
Yes, and it seems like the plenary session ran over a little bit. I'm just finding out that it's just closed. So people were still in that session. So now hopefully we'll have some people attending the breakouts.
Okay. Claudia, your business school, is that read out every alphabet or is pronounced as Essex? Essex.
ESSEC.
Essex. Okay.
Yes.
Essex Business School. Seven people. Just give you a few minutes. How's the weather in Paris?
Well, and currently I'm in Italy.
Oh, you're in Italy.
So yeah, in Italy it's I mean, north of Italy it's nice, hot today, but not too hot. In Paris, it was last week. It was a little bit cold and rainy. Yes.
I'm not even sure in London. I've not been out all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Colin, I think it's okay to go ahead and start,
Okay,
and we'll
cool.
have the recording available for the attendees afterwards. And we have some people filing in.
So, hi everybody. Thank you for joining this session. Now, this session obviously is on the operation and analytic tracks, and we are lucky to have 4 esteemed speakers with us. Now, the title of this session is Shaping Futures Leaders Through Sustainable Operations and Analytics in Business Education for Innovation and Responsible Management. In the alphabetical order, our first speaker is Claudia Acchetti. Professor Claudia is from Essex Business School in Paris. And then we have Professor Claudia Jenkins from Imperial Business School. And we have Nina Sepala, Professor Nina Sepala from UCL School of Management. And we have Priya Sinha, Head of Business of Vodafone, Head of Production Engineering of Vodafone Business. Now, I will introduce them further when coming to their turn. Again, next slide, please. Now, Claudia is our first speaker. Professor Claudia Acchetti is a distinguished full professor of operation research and associate dean at Essex. Excels in vehicle routing problems, logistic networks optimization, and supply chain management algorithm. With over 90 plus journals publication and significant editorial roles, she's a leading authority in her field, teaching decision analytics and optimization in Essex, MSc, and PhD program. Over to you, Claudia.
Thanks. Next slide, please. Thanks, Colin, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about sustainable last mile delivery. This is a topic I'm working on in terms of my research activities since the last 5 to 10 years. And so I would like, in the 10 minutes I'm available now, I would like to give you the main messages related to why but not only me, many researchers have decided to focus on this topic. Why is it important? What are the challenges? What are the concerns related to the society, business, environment in general? So next slide, please. Okay, so what are we talking about? We are talking about last mile delivery, and these I will give you just a very few slides related to some statistics, which gives you the background related to the issue or to the problem I'm talking about. So this first slide gives you the trend related to the business of first and last mile delivery from 2023 to 2024 and projection to 2028. So what we can observe is an increasing trend. Well, this is a consolidation of first and last mile. This trend is even more evident if we focus solely on last mile delivery. So the trend is increasing. So there are more and more operations in this business. And this is mostly driven by, not surprisingly, by the rising the growth of e-commerce, which exploded in the last year and created or generated this growth of especially last mile delivery. Why that happened? Because e-commerce completely changed the retailer industry, or the logistics related to the retailer industry. Because before e-commerce, what happened was that, I mean, customers were going on their own to the retailer place, to the shopping places, to do their shopping, while now e-customers, they order online, and then the companies have to deliver the corresponding parcels at the customer's place. And this, of course, creates a lot of fragmentation and many, let's say, concerns that I will talk to you about in a minute. So next slide, please. What is also important is that customers, there is a specific feature of customers which is related to the fact that e-commerce not only created fragmentation of deliveries to different customer places, but also e-customers, given that they buy something online and they don't see immediately, or they don't have with them immediately what they buy, as a consequence to that is that they want to get it fast. So we know that there is this increasing trend of explosion of fast delivery service, and one of them is same-day delivery service, which is extremely popular in the US, but also popular in Europe as well, especially in big cities. So ordering on a given day in the morning, let's say, and receiving the same what is ordered on the same day. So fast delivery service, like same day, of course, creates a lot of, let's say, complexities to the companies who need to manage the logistic and distribution operation. Because this tightened delivery time, they almost completely forbid any possibility of consolidation. And this, of course, has a tremendous consequences in terms of cost. There is no economy of scale because you cannot consolidate, and so the cost increases, but also concerns on the society and environment related to having a lot of, well, we are seeing a lot of vans going around the cities. I mean, we don't see that, but there are statistics showing that many of these vans are almost empty. So they have to deliver fast. So there is no time to fill in the capacity of the vans. So they are going around almost empty. So it's a great loss of resources, and they create congestion, pollution. There are risks for other vehicles and pedestrians. We have issues also with parking slots, double parking, and many concerns related to these explosions of delivery vans related to this extremely fast delivery service. So this slide over here shows that when we concentrate on this fast delivery service, let's say the segment of the service that is most impactful on the overall chain is the last mile. So that's why many researchers concentrated on trying to find something which could make this last mile delivery service, especially those related to fast delivery services, more sustainable. both in terms of efficiency, so cost efficiency, but also mostly in terms of being more sustainable for the society and the environment. Not only researchers have focused on that, but also either companies involved in the field, but also institutions like the European institution and many government institutions who proposed, who founded projects to find sustainable solutions for that. And next slide, please. And now I will just illustrate some of the technologies and strategies that have been thought and proposed to, to face the challenge of, especially when focusing on sustainable goals in terms of environment and society. So how can we face the congestion, pollution, and negative externalities to the society and the environment generated by these many vans going around, especially in city areas? So there has been many solutions proposed, and that generated, of course, a lot of research around these solutions. Well, the first, one of the most famous is the use of cargo bikes. So now they are becoming more and more common in deliveries, especially within city areas. Why? Because we have a, let's say, restricted areas, so bikers can travel distances which are not as long as those that you can travel by vans, of course. So cargo bikes are one of the most known solutions because they are green, sustainable. They they avoid externalities related to congestions. So this is one of the solutions, but then we have others which are more recent. So next slide, please. Autonomous ground vehicles. The idea here is to have vehicles which are autonomous, so driverless. So this helps in kind of facing issues, many issues that I will not have time to talk about related to quality of life of drivers as well. So in this case, for example, here, this technology is more recent, not yet there, let's say, in business practice, but the idea is to have these autonomous vehicles going around and either delivering to the customers or having loaders and approaching the customer place for deliveries. Other technology, next slide, please. Okay, delivery robots and drones. These are, especially delivery robots are becoming sort of reality in some cities. They have been used already. So there are companies which are using them. So the idea, so the robots that you see on the left of these slides is to have these small, let's say, autonomous small vehicles. The one shown in this slide is a very small one, typically with the capacity of one parcel. So the idea is to use them to deliver to the customers, and they of course are green and they are not impacted and they have no impact on congestion. They are becoming a reality much more than drones. Drones were proposed even earlier than robots, but they're still facing some kind of security issues, so they are not yet a reality. And next slide, please. And a very interesting idea is a very recent one, which is the freight on transit. That is the idea to use spare capacity on public transport to deliver parcel to the customers. So using public transport to deliver closer to the customers and then coupling that with cargo buys or porters to reach the final place. This is an extremely challenging idea. So last slide, please. Concluding what can we do as a operational research perspective, what we can do is give our competence in terms of optimization methodologies to optimize the system with sustainable goals in mind from a system perspective. So thanks for that. And yeah, thank you.
Hi, Colin, you're muted.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you for your topic on sustainable last mile delivery. Now we have Professor Claudia Jenkins. Now, Claudia is an associate dean at Imperial Business School and professional teaching fellow. She is an expert in regulatory economics and mechanism design, formerly advising Ofgem and Ofwat and University of College London. She now integrates Gen AI in education, enhances employability, and designs inclusive curriculum. Her leadership extends across several educational committees, driving impactful change in academic practices. Over to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you for the invite to join you. I'm going to put my hands up as being an economist in the room, as opposed to an operation and analytics expert, but I've come today because I'm very focused on analytics in how it informs education research and education practice. So what I'm going to talk about today is something that we're all interested in, and I know a number of my colleagues are presenting on Gen AI as well, but particularly thinking about how it's going to impact education and inclusive education. So can I have the next slide, please? So I think it's important to start off by making clear what I mean by inclusive education and business education in particular. What I mean is that anyone, anywhere in the world, can access education, but also thrive. So thrive in a high quality business education experience, no matter what their lived experience and characteristics. So of course that links to all of our SDG goals, but particularly how quality education can help with reducing inequalities. Next slide, please. Now, I work as an Associate Dean of Education Quality in a large business school, where we're very focused on thinking about how we can get diverse cohorts into our programs. But I think from the perspective of inclusive education, it's really important that we think about the whole journey. This is something that every discipline and every university is grappling with, but it is important that we recognize that inclusivity, which is important for our role in creating an inclusive society and inclusive economy, is about how people access education, their learning experience, their attainment when they're in education, and of course, where they can get to after they graduate. So what I'm going to think about is how Gen AI affects each of these levels of the education journey. Next slide, please. So let's think about access and access to education, again, in an inclusive way. So one of the greatest values of Gen AI is not actually the tools themselves or not in isolation, but more how they can magnify and open up the potential of lots of other online education technologies. So we've been talking about things like MOOCs, personalized learning, lifelong learning, all of these concepts for a long time. And it feels like Gen AI is going to give us the potential to really do these things at scale and at pace. So you can go into a Gen AI tool at the moment and it can help you design a curriculum. It can give you ideas on what online courses might be needed. And importantly, Gen AI tools used effectively can be used to tailor the learner experience. So we can use the tools to create algorithms to adapt to what students see, and depending on their journey, to be able to escalate particular parts of the learning in response to how they're progressing. What does that mean? It really means that there's potential for people to access education at their own pace and in a way that works for them. So it means that those who maybe up to now would not or could not access education because it was out of reach to them or didn't work on the terms that they needed to work for, it is more likely that with more online courses and even traditional courses, but with more personalized learning, more people will see business education, particularly in university, as an option for them. In terms of even just something as simple as people looking for where can I go to find a course on business strategy or an analytics course, the tools actually open up the range of options that people can find. So there will be more competition in these courses, that people will need to make sure that they can compare across options, that we give information about our courses effectively, because the tools will be looking for keywords. And the final thing, which is something that is both going to improve efficiency, but may also help with selection and diversifying selection, is using the tools to assess applications and to think about how we recruit students. Now, I'm saying that in the expectation that we will be developing tools that are able to move away from biases and think about a broader set of criteria that we might be using to select students. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we think about when we think about inclusivity in education is what happens when we get these diverse cohorts into our courses, be these short courses or long degree courses, be they online or on campus. And we know that the nature of education is going to change significantly with Gen AI. You know, I think we probably forget quite quickly the massive journey that education has been on with technology already. But, you know, now we don't blink at the idea of using projectors. We're not with chalk and talk anymore, even using computers, online polling software, delivering our talks over Zoom. But now we're about to see a new leveling up with new tools that can help the learner and the teacher access course content in different ways. I mean, essentially, we're going to have every encyclopedia you could ever imagine at our fingertips. And one of the ways a student described this to me recently is it's like they have a research assistant. So they have somebody to help them do some of the legwork. When it comes to assessment, we know that there's going to be scope for variety, and we know that variety is good for inclusivity. So one size fits all is not considered the best approach to include everyone in our assessment methodologies. Some of that variety may include the use of AI tools, some not, but the potential is there to really expand our portfolio of options. There's also a time and a place for expanding the support that students get. So we can think about having online tutors that are a mix of people and bots, providing either personal tutor type support, so pastoral support, or academic supports. Also, we can think about things like everybody has access to equal information, assuming the universities can give access to the tools. So it's not about who can afford the best textbooks or indeed can pay for private tutors, but everybody's able to have similar access. So the potential is really there for new, exciting ways to learn and to teach, but also for them to be more on a level playing field. Next slide, please. What might this all mean at the end of people taking their courses? We are well aware, particularly in the UK, but in pretty much any country in the world, of the attainment gaps that exist when people graduate. So if we can improve the learning experience, and in particular, tailor the learning experience so that each individual is able to bring their education forward at their own pace and in a way that works for them, it should be the case that we're supporting people to reach their own potential and to excel. So there is a real hope that with Gen AI tools used well, we will be able to narrow attainment gaps that exist, both in terms of ethnicities and also gender in many different disciplines. Next slide, please. We're also interested, of course, in what happens when people go out to work, and we want to make sure that we're seeing the gaps in employment narrowed. So the evidence is that we still see gender pay gaps 5-10 years after graduation, and also gaps in terms of social status. So here's free school meals eligibility, which is one marker of social status. How can Gen AI help with this? Well, again, by helping people do better in their degree, but also we can help people develop their soft skills and their employability using Gen AI. Everything from doing practice interviews with a tool, helping them to prepare your CV, helping them to help you with assessment center tests. And these kind of supports are particularly helpful for students with SEND needs, neurodivergent students who are less willing to come and ask for support from in-person career services. So we should be able to unpick some of the barriers to accessing the labour market with these tools as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm sure most of you are thinking at this point that this is a bit of a pipe dream, and really it is. There were so many questions that we're still trying to grapple with, but it is something that really seems like a potential that we shouldn't miss. That there are questions that we need to answer. We need to think about access to those tools, access to the infrastructure, the ethical use of the tools, which I know that the speaker is going to be touching on. And also we know that there are issues around biases in the tools at the moment, and also around the quality of what they're producing in some senses. All of these feel like things that we can find solutions to. Next slide, please. And for me, this is where the analytics comes into play. So the people in this session are really the people who are well placed to help. I don't think you can be an expert in analytics and not bring your expertise to bear in this side of education. You know, any module degree with analytics in the title is going to have an element of how to use Gen AI effectively and ethically. You need to teach the rest of us, teach us how to do this well. Many of you are also going to be involved in actually developing the tools and the products. So why not think about how to develop them to reduce the bias risks, to improve quality control, and even to think about how to make them work so that there's less bandwidth requirements, so that they become more accessible to a broader group of people on the planet. Working on the personalized learning journeys, how to assess applications, all these things, the analytics experts in our schools really can be the people who help work out how to use the data, how to develop the models in order to make them do the job that we want them to do. Of course, a lot of this needs piloting. And again, I think this is where we can all work together, because we need to pilot and evaluate, and that all comes back to having effective analytical tools as well. So please, it's more a plea than anything to make the difference by using your skills to help inform the education research in this really exciting area. Thank you.
Colin, you are muted.
Every time muted. Thank you. Goda, thank you for the topic. What is the potential impact of Gen AI on inclusivity in business education? Now, we have Professor Nina Sepala. Professor Nina is a deputy director at UCL School of Management, specializes in curriculum development, accreditation, and international collaboration. She launched her career with prestigious international organizations, including the UN, where Nina championed democracy promotion. A renowned expert in ethical decision-making and AI ethics, she co-authors influential books on business ethics for Cengage and Routledge. Professor Sepala holds a PhD from Warwick and an MLA from Harvard. Over to you, Nina.
Thank you, Colin. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So the topic of my presentation is insights from teaching AI ethics, importance of human agency. So at UCL, University College of London, I teach a module on the ethics of AI, and this presentation is based on exploring topics of AI ethics together with my students. Next slide, please. But before talking about my module, I wanted to share something about UCL's history with you, because it relates to AI ethics, surprisingly. So UCL was founded in 1826, and one of the inspirational founders of UCL was this person here on the slide, Jeremy Bentham, who obviously is also father of utilitarianism, one of the normative theories of ethics. So we are very proud to have him actually located still at UCL, because he gave his mummified body to UCL as a gift when he passed away. He did that for the benefit of medical research. So we can still see Jeremy Bentham at UCL within this glass box. But Bentham was a real Renaissance man, so he dipped into many academic disciplines. One of the concepts he developed was the idea of the panopticon. Next slide, please. Which is basically a prison design. So what you see here in the photo is a watchtower in the middle. They are supposed to be guards in the watchtower, and the guards can see all of the cells surrounding the watchtower and each of the prisoners in their cell. Perhaps more importantly, each of the prisoners can see the watchtower, but they can't see if there's anybody inside the watchtower. So therefore, the idea of Bentham was to introduce a system that would be cost efficient in inducing compliance and good behavior. And that was a result of the prisoners thinking that they were observed even when they weren't. Now, in their AI world, this idea of the panopticon is very often paralleled with facial recognition technology. So arguably, the facial recognition technology might have this panopticon effect on people. So even when we are not actually being surveyed by facial recognition technology, the fact that we might be is making us self-censor some of the events we attend, things we do, things we say in events like this. So there's a concern about this panopticon effect. So I just thought it was interesting to share that with you because Bentham was one of UCL's founders. Next slide. So after that off-piste explanation, I'm back to my topic, which is to talk about my module. So I teach the Ethics of AI module as an elective at UCL, meaning that it's not only the School of Management students who take it, but it's students from medicine, law, political science, engineering, geography, archaeology, a lot of our exchange students from North America, South America, all around the world. One of the assessments I use is a podcast. What you see here on the slide are some of the podcasts the students have done, so they are publicly available, and you can go onto this site and listen to them. I like the podcast assessment because students are free to focus on a topic that interests them and explore it ethically and from a societal perspective. They have only one condition, which is that they have to include an external contributor to the podcast, maybe interview somebody or have a co-host to the podcasts. Now, the topics that the students cover, I think are interesting because they tell me as an educator, what kind of topics are important for our 20-year-old university students. Next slide. This past year, I had about 80 students taking the elective in the Ethics of AI. I give prizes to the best podcasts. These are not always the podcasts that get the highest marks, but they are definitely professional standard and really interesting in terms of their content. Now, this year, these were the topics of the podcasts that won the awards. And I thought it would be interesting to share some of these topics with you so that you get an understanding of the kinds of things our students are exploring currently or interested about currently. So the winning podcast was about deepfakes and how deepfakes are eroding our trust in societal institutions, making therefore discussions and finding agreement more difficult. It's also affecting our agency as human beings because somebody else might be impersonating us, or some deepfakes might be created about us without us having any say on that. The second podcast that won an award was about recommendation algorithms. So this is all about how recommendation algorithms are competing for our attention, our time, and therefore our agency and ability to live the lives that we would like to live. The third prize went to a fantastic podcast about wearable technology. It's actually a wearable technology product from my home country. I'm not going to share the name because there are so many different products in this category. But the ethical concerns around wearable technology are obviously about biometric data and all the other sensitive data that these technologies collect. And it's not always clear how that data is shared, is it kept secure, how might it pop up in the future. And then finally, I also gave an award for especially interesting podcast this year. And that podcast was about one of the most popular topics this year, which was AI companions. So these are very often NLP-based chatbots that can be downloaded on your mobile phone. Very often you can choose whether you want to have an AI friend, AI assistant, AI romantic companion, AI something else. And in the podcasts, the students were very often trialing one of these apps. For example, in this particular podcast, the student chose to have an AI friend and then discovered that very quickly that relationship escalated into a romantic sexual conversation that he felt uncomfortable about because that's not what he was looking after. So he felt that the AI companion that he had downloaded was taking away his agency and forcing him into conversations that he didn't really want to have. Another concern that another student that he asked to trial this app had was about political conversations. So the other student found the app talking about particular candidates in the US elections in a good way and ridiculing some of the other candidates. And even though the student sort of agreed with the conversation, he wasn't happy that the AI friend was making these political statements about a sensitive electoral issue. Next slide. So I think these topics that the students cover are really insightful in terms of understanding what the concerns are currently. And many of the topics really come to the idea of human agency. Next slide, please. Sorry, these are examples of the kinds of AI companions you can download. Final slide. Yeah, thank you. And that's what I want to finish with. So it seems to me that one of our key roles as educators is really to support human agency and the ability of our students to stay in control of all of these AI tools that are available now. Because if they don't do that, it is the AI tools that are going to be running their lives without being aligned with their values, their aspirations, their interests. So our role is to help students to take control, understand how these applications work or technologies work. But also, I think it goes beyond that. It is about helping our students to define or understand what is valuable for them. What is it? What kind of a life do they want to have? What role does AI play in that life? And how do we, across all of their modules and activities we have at university, support this agency of students? So I can see that I have only 1 minute left, but I just wanted to say that in analytical philosophy, they've really looked into agency in very much detail, and they define agency as the ability to take action that is motivated by a reason. And more than that, it's not that everything we do in life is always reasoned. It's also that we have that ability to take a higher level and investigate everything we do in that way. And that's what I think we had to do as educators, help our students to reflect on what they are doing and take that higher ground that really is distinct to human beings compared to other living beings, as well as especially AI. I'm going to leave it there, Colin. I know I'm over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you for your topic. Insight from teaching AI ethics, importance of human agency. Now we have Priya Singha. Priya is the head of product engineering for Vodafone Business Managed Mobility Portfolio. She delivers cutting-edge digital solutions for multinationals, SMEs, and SOHOs across the UK, Europe, and the US. With over 20 years of experience in technology, she's a trailblazer in digital transformation, product strategy, and agile methodologies. Priya is passionately advocating for gender equality and inclusion in corporate leadership. Over to you, Nina. Priya, sorry.
No problem, Colin. Good evening and good morning, everyone, for people joining from across the pond. First of all, I must say thank you for inviting me for this session. And it's been really interesting to hear what the others have presented. AI is a topic that is top of mind, the first thing that everybody talks about in every business circle, across the industries. The amount of buzz that it has generated is astounding, but it's also relevant. I'm really excited to talk to you about, my topic is slightly different, but it's more relevant for what happens in day-to-day product engineering. So I head product engineering in Vodafone Business. And as part of my role, my accountabilities is ensuring that the end-to-end product life cycle, product design, development, launch, and in-life product performance is up to the point, it delivers what it promises. And that's what I'm here to talk about. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So because I want to talk about operational excellence and analytics in business, I wanted to start by taking a step back. And what you see here on the screen is the classic stages of a business life cycle. I'm sure most of you have seen it. Most of you have perhaps lived it also in your previous lives in the corporate world. Typically, it starts with an MVP, which is a minimum viable stage, where we try out a concept. It is done after you do a proof of concept or a prototype, and you then move on to a startup stroke MVP stage, which is a minimum viable product stage. It goes through its classic stages of roadmap development, enhancing the product, maturing the product, and somewhere at this stage, you start thinking of real growth and real expansion. How do you do that? By launching out in greater markets, multiple markets, increasing your customer segments, perhaps expanding on the features and the value proposition of your product, and ultimately with an intention to support broader segments and markets. Ultimately with an intention to drive revenue growth, to improve, to deliver a certain value to the society, to the segments that you serve, and so on. At every step, it goes without saying that we have to observe, measure, and monitor how the product is performing. That is the fundamental rule of good business practices. We shall go through some of those stages in the next slides and really understand what makes that excellence in business. So what you see here is I've just tried to highlight like two classic stages of a business launch. So you gather teams, you gather momentum, you get the teams motivated, and you start working on a business launch based on an idea or an MVP proposition. There's a lot of work that goes into that. There is a lot of excitement. It's a new shiny box, perhaps. It's got lots of new cool features. It's got a lot of bells and whistles, as they say. And then it's time to build that vision and to go for a market launch. It's all very exciting. Product dev teams are typically quite motivated. They're self-motivated because they're building on new things, things that they believe will add value to their customers. There's a lot of press and social media engagement. It's all cool. It's all very, very interesting and very happening, quote unquote, happening. So there's the euphoria of the first sale. You build a product, you launch a product, and you engage with your customers. There's a pipeline that gets developed, and bam, there is a new sale. Everybody is super excited. Perhaps you would also you'll come across sometimes some losses, and that's not a very good feeling. But ultimately, that's your classic business launch state. One must stop here and think about actually what happens once you sell a product to your customer. Typically, in my world, I support large multinationals, SMEs, and SOHO customers. So I'm talking about a B2B, a classic enterprise environment. So what happens in that world? Once you launch a product, of course, you have to make sure that the product delivers what it promises. So you start talking about how are we getting customer feedback? Are we delivering value? Is there a net promoter score that we're looking at? Customer reviews, the golden words of the customer. And then comes the cost side of things. Are we looking at how is the P&L of the product looking? What are the kind of customer acquisition costs, customer retention costs? What's the lifetime value of that customer? So there are a lot of these price and cost-based conversations that happens in the background after you launch a product. Of course, there's a lot of thinking, but this is all happening in real life, on ground, after you've launched a product. And I think that's where it's important to continuously observe, monitor, measure, and feedback into that product life cycle to ensure that there's right matrices, there are right KPIs that are being tracked to deliver on that promise. So let's move on to the next slide. Thank you. I wanted to present this slide because what really is business operational excellence? I think there's an ancient parable, I'm sure some of you have seen this in the past, which is about a group of blind men examining an elephant and trying to work out what sort of creature it really is. Each touches the elephant in different places, the trunk, the tusk, the leg, the tail, and each comes up with a radically different conclusion about what sort of animal they're dealing with. Some believe it's a snake, some believe it's a bull, it's a wall, it's a rope, and so on. While this parable has its roots in text over 2,000 years old, it continues to express a universal truth. And that is, when we don't manage to take in the full picture, we end up drawing wildly diverse conclusions. Operational excellence has the same problem. We all become obsessed with pieces that we are interested in once the product goes live. And accordingly, we see business challenges through that lens. It could either be primarily a technology challenge, a new digital service opportunity, a culture change, a customer engagement issue. Business transformation and operational excellence through it is all of the above. And it's super important to connect the dots and look at it holistically as opposed to one particular lens of in-life product performance. So if you can move to the next slide. Thank you. So it could be, like I said, it could be around how do you excel and improve your product to enhance market and revenue growth. It could be how do you do customer experience and make better superlative customer experience. It could be about operational efficiency, which is fundamentally about costs and margins and profitability of the product. It could be about sustainability, the ESG framework that a lot of organizations align with, and ultimately the benefit to the customer. Underlying and underpinning all of this, we come to data and analytics. And that's the key term and area that drives how do you measure and monitor and change things based on the indices that you measure. So if we go on to the next slide, please. What I've done here is I've just tried to give you an example, a very quick overview, what kind of matrices you would look at typically when you're trying to improve the performance of your product. I use the word product in business quite interchangeably here because ultimately your product is what defines and drives your business. So first and foremost, it's about customer experience and digital NPS. This is fundamentally to measure your customer emotional quotient when it comes to using your product. How do they feel when they are using your product? Typical things would be around digital satisfaction on the platform. It could be any platform. It could be a mobile app. It could be a web channel. What is the user experience? What is the availability of your platform? What kind of FAQs and online helps are you giving to your customer whilst they're using your platform? Then we come to the big one, which is the key operational metrics. These are the key KPIs of your product. I've taken some examples here purely to give you a flavor of what kind of matrices we measure. So it could be about how do we do forecast and demand planning? How do we have stock availability for our customers? Are we looking at the inventory finance of that stock and obsolescence of that stock? What kind of SLOs have we promised contractually to our customers around delivery of products, collection of devices back, and so on? What is the volume of service requests are we getting? And how soon are we able to support our customers to close those service requests? And what kind of interoperability that we provide through our products to our customers? Then comes delivery and distribution. This is an interesting one because this is something that the customer never sees. This is more to measure at what speed and frequency are you delivering new features to your customers. So in classic agile language, what's the velocity of your train? How many features are you delivering per increment? Whether it's a quarter, it's a month, it's a half year, what volume of features are you introducing for your customers? What is your committed versus actual value? What kind of technical debts that you have on your platform? And these are the kind of delivery and distribution matrices. If we quickly move on to the next slide, please. I'll probably take 15 seconds, no more.
That's fine.
Thank you. Then there's predictability. To me, this is one of the most important matrices that, again, the customer never sees, but it's fundamental to good product performance. Today, when we use the word product, we are talking about digital products primarily, and of course, they're physical products as well. How do you measure what kind of failures and fallouts are you having in the background? And how soon are you able to resolve those failures and give the customer a good experience? So having a North Star in terms of industry benchmarks is key, and to measure and compare to how your products are doing, digital products are performing compared to competition. There's also the internal NPS, which is more about how happy are your stakeholders within your organization? Are they talking, is there good press? Is there bad press? Are they talking good, bad, ugly about your products? That's really key to long-term life cycle of the product. And ultimately, communication and advocacy. This is about how much are you talking about your products with your customers, whether it's through digital channels, it's through educating your customers, reminding them about new features, and are they advocating about you in their circles? Are they referring you so that you're able to develop a robust pipeline? So these are your classic matrices that that we would look at when building products to drive business growth. And finally, I just want to take a minute to just talk about some best practices. So if you move on to the next slide, Colin. Thank you. I just want to call out some key features here, key points to remember, some best practices to drive success. First and foremost is about strategy and mindset. We need to have a compelling vision and a very clear strategy of what we're trying to build and what we're trying to send to our customers. Establish those goals and objectives, do active listening, and ensure this, celebrate small wins. Then it's about execution and governance, which is about good execution practices. How often are you reviewing your product boards? What matrices are you using to measure the performance of your delivery function, and continuously adapting things in line with changes in the market? Finally, customers, which is having a customer-centric vision and involving the customer in early stages of building your product. And ultimately having a well-balanced view of what is new versus what is continuous improvements. It's important that we do not lose sight of what's happening on the ground, with eyes and ears on the ground, and continuously bring that into your roadmap and build on the product. So these are just some of the best practices that I have seen works effectively in terms of long-term strategy and vision of building successful products. I'll stop here. Apologies, I've gone a little over time, but I hope I've been able to give the right message. And the key message is all of this makes good, successful products. Underpinning all of this is fundamentally good data quality and the ability to measure, monitor, and adapt in line with the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you for your topic, operational excellence and analytic in business, insight on how it can contribute to education and practice to support PRME mission. Lastly, myself, I'm glad that Priya took a bit of time so that I don't need to speak that long. Actually, I didn't prepare for that long, but yeah. At the moment, I'm a program director of MSc Business Analytics at Surrey Business School and appointed academic at UCL. So, yep. Next slide, please. Okay, my topic is a cognitive AI framework to shape future-ready minds. Again, next slide, please. Now, I believe a lot of you, a lot of us, including the participant, I believe, have heard of something called Bloom taxonomy. Now, Bloom taxonomy has been with us since we were studying, because I remember it is used in the school, in the college, and even in the university to teach us how do we answer assignment. But to me, more importantly, is about thinking framework. Now, as you can see from on the left, the lower hierarchy is remember, and then understand, and then apply, and then analyze, evaluate, and create. In 2022, when generative AI was released, I was coincidentally looking at Bloom taxonomy, and then suddenly a thought came across me. Hang on, if there is a GAI, do we really need to remember still? Do we really need to apply still? Because remembering GAI, generative AI, has given us the ability to store and to retrieve information in a split second, and then apply a lot of generative AI now, as you can see from NVIDIA, they showcase their robot. Anything can be repeated, automation of tasks can be taken by robot. So I was thinking, do we really still need remember and apply? And hence, based on Bloom taxonomy, I created a new framework called Cognitive AI Framework, which is on the right. Now, in my case, my cognitive AI framework, the lower level is called Explore. Explore means the students or the people will try to understand the problem at hand and then try to prompt the generative AI to see what would be the answer. And then go to the next level is Engage, is continuing prompting and asking questions to have this human AI collaboration. Some people call it co-creation. And then obviously there are some answers being given by generative AI. So it's up to us to examine, which is analyzing and evaluating what is given is somewhat factual, somewhat not hallucinating by the AI. Then with this, as long as we are confident about what we're examining, then we can decide and create a new output or a new product or a new outcome, what I called it formulate. And then with this, we're supposed to reflect whether what the output given by generative AI, is that ethical? Is that meeting the value of ourselves? Is that sustainability and so on and so forth? Next slide. Now, we also know a lot of us have been talking about Prime 7 principle. Now, Prime 7 principle based on, as you can see, purpose, values, teach, research, partner, practice, and shape. Next slide, please. That is when I'm thinking, hang on, what happened if I combine my cognitive AI framework with the Prime 7 principle on the right and the I5 on the left? Now, as you can see, there are a lot of matching here. For example, explore the lowest level. Explore the implication of RME through AI-driven insight using analytics. We could help our students to do that. We also, when come to engage, we try to engage our student in an understanding and practicing organization responsibility through AI collaboration. Organization responsibility does not mean institution. It could mean our society, our community. Then going up next level, we teach our student how to examine AI output analytically in the context of responsible management education to foster critical thinking. And then come to formulate, use AI research to help our students to formulate innovative ethical solution in operation analytics. Obviously, all this, it depends how critical our student can think. I believe speakers before me has been talking about this. So the criticality is a very important element. Then come to reflect. We partner with diverse stakeholders to reflect on and enhance the ethical use of AI in responsible management education. They'll obviously reflect. We practice responsible AI management and share outcomes for collective learning and improvement. Now that is on the 7th principle. On the I5, again, in terms of explore, we connect AI to student backgrounds and interests for meaningful exploration so that they get interest. And then we try to coach our students to engage with AI joyfully to boost emotional intelligence and well-being. Going up to another level, we build supportive social interaction to examine AI output. So friends can get together and share how do they examine the output. And then we actively involve students in formulating AI-based solution. This then obviously come up to reflection, design iterative experience in reflecting AI practice. Next slide, please. So that to me is a new learning experience. So with this cognitive AI framework incorporating Prime 7 principle and I5, I believe students will have ability to analyze, problem solving, and ethical reasoning, passive to active learning, modernized teaching methods, And at the same time, obviously, we can reflect on our teaching and learning. It helps for knowledge creation. It allows students to practice the theory with practicality, and obviously they get instant feedback, again, based on the prerequisite that they have to be able to critically analyze the output produced by generative AI. Next slide, please. Now, my dream is in the future, we can use AI to turn from pedagogy to heutagogy. Pedagogy is teacher-led. Andragogy is student-led. Heutagogy is student taking full control. So I believe with cognitive AI power, transferring from Bloom taxonomy, student one day will be able to reach heutagogy. That's what we educators mean empowering learners. Next slide, please. Now, ultimate goal is hope that this can help students with neurodiversity to be able to study themselves. That is what we're talking about heutagogy. Next slide, please. To me, that is a new era of learning, starting from explore towards engage, examine, formulate, and reflect. I believe that is the end of my session. Next slide, please. Thank you. Whew. So, ladies and gentlemen, if there is any question, I think personally, I'm very thankful to have these 4 esteemed speakers. Now you can see everybody are expert in their own right. Some of the knowledge that's been shared by them is really eye-opening for me. So if anybody participants, if you have any question, please type in the chat box. Yeah, there is one question. Sorry, let me show that is. No, there wasn't. So no, that is from no. Okay. If there's nobody, my first question will go to Priya. Priya, you talk about this product engineering. Obviously, to me, that is operation management. Now, what do you believe are the key barriers to product-led growth organizations?
Okay, I think before I even answer that question, I would just say that there's one word, which is the magic word that we use in business circles, and I cannot use it enough, and that's communication, communication, and communication. I think it's the key to making sure that people are informed, people are aware, people can make the right decision based on the information that you circulate. So communication to me is fundamental to ensuring that there's clarity. And once I've spoken about my magic word, I'm going to actually tell you about 3-4 things in my experience that I feel really are barriers which we need to somehow overcome. The first is a lack of a clear strategy in terms of what your product objectives are, what is important to the lifeline of the product. What is it that you're trying to sell and why you're doing it? Again, it comes back to communication, but more than that, it's also about clarity of your product objectives. If you don't have that, teams tend to, lose interest, get demotivated, look for direction all the time. And it's the antithesis of a team that's self-motivated, self-informed, self-engaged, trying to solve the problems by themselves. So I think clarity of why you're doing something and objective, strategy and objectives is really key. Second, to me, a barrier to good growth is a lack of an open dialogue with people on ground. So I constantly say that a product is not something that you deliver and you forget about it. It's a lifelong, or it's a commitment for the life cycle of that product, which means that you have to be engaged with operational teams on ground, listening to them keenly in terms of what is it that's not working, so that you can bring it back into your roadmap and then start improving it. That to me is really important. And more times than not, what I've seen is that if you don't have robust, mechanism in place to get that feedback back from your people on ground, that can lead to a lot of escalations and a lot of unnecessary noise and really bad press for the product. Finally, I think it's also a strategy which needs to be, if it's too rigid, and if it's not pluralistic, if it's too linear in its vision, I think that's also a key barrier, because the market is not linear and the market is very dynamic. So you need to have a strategy which gives you that clarity of what you want to do, but still have flexibility to be a lot more pluralistic than just doing X, Y, and Z. So to me, these are the key things that one needs to remember for good growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to add a follow-up question, including other panels, participants? Now, Priya, obviously, analytics play a very important role in what you just discussed, correct?
Yes. I mean, if you want me to extrapolate on that, absolutely. I think for me, there's so many matrices that I track on a daily basis. And again, going back to basics, we're talking about digital products. So what the customer sees is one thing, but in the background, there are 10 different teams doing multiple things to make sure that the product works. So if you don't have systems talking to each other properly, that can lead to serious escalations or issues. It could lead to billing challenges. A customer could be overbilled or underbilled. You could have revenue leakage if there is problems in terms of the technical infrastructure that you have. So these are really important matrices that you have to track and make sure that there's a very quick turnaround time in terms of closing issues around that. So analytics plays a very important role to track those matrices. So how are you building your products that you're future-proofing them so that you are putting those right placeholders in the design time so that they can track the right matrices. So that's why analytics is really key. What is the quality of your data? Rubbish data in, rubbish data out. So it's not going to give any value to whatever you're building. So making sure that your structure is robust to capture those information, and B, what data that you feed into it is really important. So hence analytics plays a very important role in operations.
Thank you, Priya. Nina, question now goes to you. Now, I think some of us, including myself, may not truly understand the phrase human agency. Now, the following question is, do you have any practical recommendations on how we can support human agency, please?
Okay, so was that two questions, Colin, in one?
Yes.
So
Let's see, just
how
the
has
definition of human agency?
yeah,
I keep thinking it's an institution.
Yeah, so human agency in philosophy, and I use the philosophical definition of human agency in my teaching and also in some of my research. So it's been defined as intentional action based on reason. Okay. So if I give you an example they often give is that I ask Alexa to wake me up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I'm setting the alarm because the intention is for me to wake up. There might be unintentional consequences. So, my partner might wake up as well. That wasn't the intention, but that might happen. So in human agency, the importance is on the intention rather than the activity itself. Okay. So, it has lots of consequences. The problem with AI sometimes is, of course, I'm an AI enthusiast, so I don't always look at it from this critical perspective, is that, if we are not careful, AI is occupying our time in ways that we haven't decided. So we need to stay on top of it. And that's really how I think agency relates to AI in my teaching, at least. So what can we do then about enabling students to stay in control, have agency over AI? And I would say that we need to upskill them about AI across our courses, whatever we teach, whether it's in the School of Management, whether it's in languages. I think we need to raise their competence of understanding how AI works. Without that competence, I don't think they can be critical about how AI is affecting their behavior. But I think there's another side to it, which is the technical side. I think AI tools need to be more transparent and explainable as well. And luckily, we now do have the new EU AI Act, which expects companies to be more transparent about the training data that has been used, but also explainable to the end user about how the algorithms is working. And that means that we as human beings, we will have a better understanding of if I'm being recording interview answers online, I might understand how the algorithm is analyzing my facial expressions and what I say. And that gives me more control and agency over that whole experience. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, any participants want to ask any follow-up questions?
I think I have more of a follow-up comment to what Nina just said, which is, you know, what she's talking about with agency is really important on the inclusivity side, because I think, but also the training up the students, because there is a real risk. You know, we've talked for a long time about something called a hidden curriculum in education, where students who come from non-traditional backgrounds struggle with everything from how to take notes and how to interact with people. Potentially, students who've come from, you know, homes where people are used to working with these tools, or they're working in industry where they use these tools, they'll have been exposed to them in a different way. So I do think making sure that we train everyone up is going to be really important. So it's not just sort of giving them free access to Microsoft Copilot or something when they become a student, but teaching them how to learn it. I think that lends itself really nicely to your talk as well, Colin, in terms of how to use it well. Is about, you know, where it can help you and where you still have to retain so the agency is also about which parts you use. So for anyone joining us, we didn't kind of join up our presentations, but I think they all kind of align quite nicely. So thank you for all your insights on the areas.
I like the point you are making, Claude, in terms of, I just happened to attend another presentation yesterday where they were talking about that a little bit, that they were looking at what percentage of students are using AI in their assessments. And it was surprising. Obviously, there are many different studies with many different results, but there was a big proportion of students who didn't want to use AI at all. And then the discussion yesterday was, is this actually going to hinder those students, because AI will be used in many jobs and organizations and in different ways. So there could be that division and polarization of those who can and those who can't use AI well or critically, like you said. So it's interesting.
No, that obviously then linked to what, Claudia, you've been talking about, inclusivity. Now, have you have any example of work already being done to consider inclusivity? I cannot pronounce that word. Inclusivity when adapting teaching or assessment for generative AI?
So I think when I think about what's going on in the, well, probably for the last 2 years around adapting education for Gen AI, Bria's elephant and the blind men springs to mind. I think there is a lot of people doing some amazing things and trying lots of things out, but it's not very joined up. Probably in the last 3 to 6 months, I've heard inclusivity, or at least accessibility to the tools, coming up more on the agenda. So, I mean, at Imperial, we're piloting a lot around using AI feedback tools, AI tutors. People are bringing in AI into their modules and trying to get students to work on how to use it. And through my other networks, Colin mentioned various things that I'm involved with, I've seen that happening a lot, but very piecemeal and not joined up. And I think that's where I worry a bit, that the sharing of the learning, be it, you know, failings or successes, we need to find a better way of doing that, I think, and also evaluating the pilots. So a lot of things look quite whizzy, and whether they're actually helping student learning and doing that in an inclusive way is probably not the question people are asking yet, I feel, but it would be interesting to know if that is coming more up on the agenda. And I guess we started from a place where everyone was worried about authenticity in assessment and, you know, sort of running away from the AI. And I do feel like people have become more positive about it over time. but I think maybe not running away with it too fast till we think about, Nina's point about how to use it well and how to make sure that people understand how it's being used, and also how it's being used in business, a bit like Claudia's robots. If these things are being used, how are they being used, and that we understand it better.
Thank you. Thank you. Now there's a comment from Kojula. Thank you very much for this very complimentary and highly interesting panel. We can see also important challenges for teachers and faculty to learn and master AI and other analytical digital tools, not only the critical thinking by students. Now, any panel want to have a comment on that? I believe it's a statement.
I think my only comment is yes, absolutely. I think we're all learning and probably at different paces and in different ways.
But obviously here, because PRME is more for education, especially business, but obviously AI now not only critical in the academia world, but it's also critical in a lot of sector, especially, for example, legal. It was talking about deepfake. Now that is a very concerning phenomena, especially in the legal world. What can you trust now? Not even the video, right? So yeah. Now this AI thing. Now I know, Claudia, your topic may be slightly non-related, but it's actually related. Now I know you talk about last mile delivery, right? Now before we try to link it to AI, what do you believe is the most relevant action that should be taken to make last mile delivery even more sustainable?
Yes, thanks for that, and thanks for the question. Well, yeah, first, it's true that last mile delivery is not the focus of today's, let's say, webinar, but it's true that the AI is there, and it's heavily there. If you think about the technologies that are presented today, they are heavily, helped and based on AI technology, data-driven support, and analytics, both predicting and prescriptive analytics for that. In terms of your question, Colin, I think that this is, in my opinion, the next step is people awareness about I think what is important to do is to make people aware of what's going on. So when we order something on the web, either if it's just let's say a pair of shoes, we want it to be there by next day at most, because we want it. But we're not aware of what this means. What is the cost of that? And analytics, of course, can help in that. And I think going back to what Priya was mentioning earlier, analytics are essential and are essential also here. Analyzing what is the cost of these, let's say, of this desire of customers, but it is desire of customer, but this is also what now generate the competition among different companies. So companies, compete on who's the fastest to deliver the order to the customers. And of course, you are the best, you are the fastest. But of course, it has a cost. But the point is that, okay, customers are not aware of what this means. And I think at a higher level, let's say governmental level, European level, the institutions should push to make people aware of what it means, because then I think that many people, and of course that in order to do that, we need data, we need the analysis of data. Data are there, but we are not yet able to extract the knowledge related to that. Because I'm convinced that if people get aware of what this means, they might be a little bit more relaxed in terms of their, let's say, requests. And this would definitely ease operations to be more sustainable to me.
Thank you. Priya, you go ahead, hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say AI is such a huge topic in itself, but just a couple of, I glean a couple of points from all the things that have been said so far. I mean, first of all, in business, everybody's talking about it. So absolutely, this is like the most talked about point within every strategy conversation that business corporate worlds companies are having. And everybody recognizes that we're not there yet. Everybody recognizes it's a journey, and it's all about learning and discussing with collaborating with your peers, with your partners in the ecosystem to kind of see where it takes you. And I think ethics in AI, or responsible AI, as some people call it, is really key. And it's not like a set of already mandated set of things. There is a lot of conversation happening, and of course the industry recognizes this. There's been so much so that the leaders of our different countries have gotten together. Of course, I'm referring to the one that happened last year in the UK, and people are talking about it. But I think I do want to say that there is an obvious blatant positive effect of AI, which is in terms of how can it improve your customer experience for your customers? How can it make things better operationally and make things faster for you to help reduce costs? And then ultimately, there's a human factor, because there's always that argument of yes, AI can make life easy, and it can help you shape up proposals, for example. It can help you quickly build up proposals so that you can present it to your customers when you're doing a bidding, and so on. But it all boils down to the quality of content that goes into that proposal using AI. And so there's always that element of human eyes and human agency, like Nina was also talking about. It's really important to get that view on top of AI. By itself, it would be like a unregimented, unregulated phenomena, which is not going to add, which is not going to give that level of impact that you want it to give. But in the same time, we often debate even amongst ourselves internally that AI can, when interns join your organization, and we all recognize the value of learning through practice and learning through repetition and learning through real life scenarios. And somewhere I think there's always that argument that if AI is going to make life easy so much for people who are just joining the ranks and learning about the industry, then how are they going to learn? Experience doesn't come in a day. Experience is not about you've got something on a platter and there you are. It's about going through the rigmarole of hard work and making those mistakes so that they understand, and those are lessons you learn for life. So I think it's a bit of a dichotomy in a way, but something that we just have to pave our way through. So there's no right or wrong kind of side. You just have to find your own path here in the middle.
See,
I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
What ironic is, for example, right? When we all talk about sustainability, we all talk about inclusivity, ethics, and stuff like that, right? Now, for example, if we look at AI, now when we put something into ChatGPT, for example, generative AI, right? It needs computer power. So by using computer power, obviously sustainability issue is impacted. So isn't that a two opposing direction in that sense as well? Now, as an academic, I myself say that because I do teach them AI in my machine learning, right? I do teach them, but it does not seem to stop them from copying. It seems that plagiarism even become worse. Now, so my question to each one of you is, do you see in your sector, do you see AI is a help of or a harbinger in your field? Who wants to go first?
I might go first, partly because I was going to make your point about the sustainability issue with AI, because I think it is something we're talking about. And I'm kind of sitting here wondering if in 5 years' time we're going to have something like Claudia's talk talking about what are the Gen AI tools that are more sustainable in the last mile of education delivery. And I wonder if we can preempt that by thinking about, one of my points was, can we design tools that use less bandwidth, less power. They might not be as good, but they might be good enough. And I think that's something we should think about. But I think it's not a panacea, Gen AI. I don't think it solves all problems, and it will create havoc along the way. I think in the same way as most of us aren't particularly good at doing a Google search and knowing which thing to select from the search, I think this will be the same. And, I guess the ethics issues and intellectual property and other things are even. So I do think we're going to need some regulators along the way. We're going to need a lot of education for the educators and the businesses along there as well. That's kind of one perspective.
So Claudia, for you, do you see AI is a help in the sector, in the field that you are in right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do. I mean, I use it daily, but in a very sporadic way.
For the students as well.
And the students, but I think, some are using it better than others, and I think we need to work out why.
So, Nina, because you talk about that now in your field, do you see that AI is a help as well in terms of what you talked about earlier? It's a positive thing.
Yeah, so I do teach ethics, but I mainly teach leadership, organizational behavior, HR kind of modules. I think there will be AI applications in any field, and definitely there are lots of applications being developed in HR. Some of them will be useful, others will not. It depends to some extent about the size of the organization, what kinds of things are important to them. So I think it's going to be just a lot of people need to have a baseline of understanding in order to evaluate whether AI is going to be useful for their purposes, for their context. So that's why I think there needs to be a baseline understanding in our society, not only among students, but everybody. How do we get there? Yeah, that's a different question. I think actually what's been interesting to see is how good our understanding of GDPR is, because every single organization has to constantly educate us about privacy to the extent that I guess many of us are a little bit bored, but it shows that it is possible through regulation to raise general awareness in society about a particular topic. Now, GDPR is complex, but perhaps less complex than AI. So whether something like that can be done with AI, I think remains to be seen.
1 more minute, quickly, go to both of yourself, Priya and Claudia. How do you see AI in your particular sector?
I'll let Claudia respond first.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. So yes, as I mentioned, I'm in operations research, so I do mostly optimization, and we now have, I'm in borderline with the computer science. So now there is a lot of interaction with machine learning for let's say prediction coupled with decision making, or optimization inside prediction, this kind of stuff. So it's useful. But going back to what Claudia was mentioning earlier, I think what has to be investigated now is how to make this machine learning, especially machine learning, because this is the kind of stuff I'm more interested in, make it more sustainable. Yeah.
Thank you. Priya?
I think absolutely AI is of great value. So I think, and it's already
in your
proving
business, in your line of business.
In the line of business, and I think it's already, and AI has been around for a while. I think it's Gen AI that's kind of slightly more nuanced and new in the context of what we're doing. But of course, AI is of great value. Of course, it's going to give huge benefits in customer experience, in especially network optimization in the telco sector, for example, or even in productivity of teams, like the example I quoted around, building proposals. Like that's one of the most obvious basic things we do, legal documents, and there is that level of human agency, I keep saying, that one has to employ when it comes to, I'm using the word, apologies, Nina, if I'm not using the word correctly, but I mean it in the context of, those eyes and ears once an AI has generated an output. It's really, really important. So I see it as a benefit. I see it as Just like in the past, we were talking about digital, it was the buzzword, digital revolution, digital transformation. That was the word that was being used 10 years back. It was the word. Now it's AI. Tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years down the line, it'll be something else. We just have to learn to live with it and find a sustainable, responsible, ethical middle ground to work with those technologies. But a lot more is coming our way, and we just have to, life will continue, corporate life will continue, student life will continue as it is with tweaks with these technologies.
Thank you so much. Now, that has been an amazing session. Now, participants, I hope you have enjoyed the session. I truly do. Now, I know some of the speakers here, but the things that they said to me today is still a very insightful learning curve for myself. So thank you, Claudia from ESSEC Business School, Claudia, Imperial Business School, Nina, UCL School of Management, and Priya, Vodafone Business. It is the honor of Prime to have 4 of you to be in the panel together. Seriously, thank you so much. And wherever you are in UK, I think most of us are in Europe. So have a good evening and have a good rest. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Aggie. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody else.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.